Oh, what's going on, everybody? Hope all is well. I know it's been a while, but today I'm going to teach you how to become Spider-Man in Davinci Resolve. In today's video, I'm going to cover two techniques. The first one being a little bit more of an easy style where you shoot a web at the camera, you pull it towards you. It's a good setup transition for a vlog style shot. The next being where you shoot a web at a subject or an object and you pull it towards you and catch it. A little bit more advanced, but I'm gonna cover both today. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Fenn, and I usually put out tutorials on a weekly basis. I haven't lately for a while. I was in Hawaii. Maybe I'll make a video on that in the future. So without further ado, let's get started. If you want to download the stock footage that I'm gonna use here in the example and that I used in the intro of this tutorial, feel free to download that. It's down in the description. Also, if you want the web effects, those assets are also available for download, linked down in the description. So feel free to download all that and then follow along. So for the first part of this tutorial, we're gonna do this type of web effect. Okay, so you're gonna need two clips. I have this first clip here, and that's me shooting my hand like I'm shooting a web at the camera, and then I pull back. And then my next clip is me basically just pretending like I'm catching my camera. So what we want to do is on the first clip, go to the point right where I pull back almost all the way and trim that clip down to that point. Right there. Then on the next clip, we want to move this to the point where I basically am catching it right there. Could be a good place to put it. So now we're going to go from that to that. Next, what we want to do is drag in those web effects. So go ahead and bring those in. So the first one that we want to do is the web shoot string. When you drag it in, it's going to look like this. So you need to go up to the composite mode and select add. Next, you want to adjust the size and move the position left and right. In this case, I'm actually going to flip it horizontally because it's coming down at the camera. So I'm going to move this down like this, and I'm going to kind of just move with my arrow keys right to the point where it's, shooting out of my hand, and then that'll be about right there. So I want to make sure I drag this web clip so it's shooting out right where I want it to be and right when I want it to be. Bring it up a little bit so it's coming out of the palm of my hand. Okay, so now that I have this matched up to where it shoots out of my hand, I also want to match up the point where when the web retracts and I pull it towards the camera. So let's go ahead and speed ramp this middle section. So I'm going to go to right about here, zoom in, right click and click on retime controls, come down and click on the 100% and add speed point. Next, I want to move to the point where it starts to retract, come down here and add another speed point and basically just drag this together like that. And then time it and adjust this top arrow where it looks like I'm pulling back, which that actually looks pretty good. All right. The next thing that we want to do is bring in the web that kind of covers the camera lens. So let's go ahead and bring in the web splat and then come up and change the composite mode to add, just like we did on the previous one, and then match it up to the same point of when this hits the lens, the first web. So I'm using my arrow keys. I'm going to drag this to this point and maybe even bring the opacity down a little bit. And then I'm also going to trim that, get rid of the excess because I don't want it to be on the lens as when I pull it towards me and catch it. I can even fade it out a little bit as it gets pulled towards me. All right, so now that we have these clips set up like this, it's time to add the point where you kind of zoom the camera, it's pulling towards you, and so we need to add some zoom effect. Let's go up to the FX library, come down to effects, and let's drag an adjustment clip on top of all of these clips here. I'm going to trim the adjustment clip. And so what we're going to do here is basically just add a zoom. So make sure your playhead is selected over the clip. Click on Fusion. And the first thing we want to do is add a transform node. So hold down Shift and press spacebar and type in transform. Push enter on your keyboard. It should automatically drop in between the beginning and the ending of the clip. What we want to do now is add some zoom effect when I start pulling on the camera. So right where my hand starts to pull backwards, let's go ahead and come up to the size and keyframe by clicking on this little diamond. Click on that and then move to the end of the clip with using your arrow keys on your keyboard and go all the way up to the end. And then let's adjust the size. The max is 5, but if you type in, for example, 12, that should be good. Also, what we want to do is, since we don't want it to zoom straight to like past my neck here, we want to animate and keyframe some of the center and pivot adjustments here. Go up to the point of right when I start to pull in. Let's keyframe these as well. Go up to the last frame and move the center over. Maybe bring down the Y because I'm kind of going to catch it right there. And now as I go backwards, as it zooms in, it'll come towards my chest. All right, so let's smooth this out now. How do we do that? Let's go up to the spline at the top here, click on spline, and then click on transform. Now we want to adjust the size parameter since it's very linear. So in order to do that, we can just turn off these by clicking twice on them. So now all we see is size. So in order to somewhat round this off, since it's just a straight line of animation, let's go ahead and click on this first little point here and push F. If you want, you can push plus and minus on your keyboard to zoom in and out here in the spline, which is kind of easy. And so what I'm going to do is actually just drag this all the way out, make sure this line's nice and flat. And also, I want to make sure that this frame doesn't like do anything funky when I zoom it in like this because I adjusted the center. So let's go over here to the pivot, displacement, and center path. And we can just adjust that in like that. But anyways, that just kind of prevents the frame from moving around too much when you do the zoom. And the last thing we want to do is close the spline and come over to the transform and select this little cog over here in the inspector. Come down and select motion blur and turn the quality up to as high as you like. The higher you go, the harder your computer is going to have to work. Okay, so when you have done that so far, and then you come back to the edit tab, and the last thing I actually did is I came up to the adjustment clip, then I clicked on the effects library, click on open effects and scroll down until you see camera shake. Go ahead and drag that on top of the adjustment clip, and then close the effects library. Then come up to the top right-hand corner where you see the inspector. Go ahead and click on that, and then click on open effects. And this will bring up the camera shake parameters and adjustments for what we want to do. Now for this specific clip, I just want the camera shake to happen right when the web actually hits the camera and while I'm pulling it towards me. So instead of having it starting to shake right here at the very beginning, I'm going to come to the point where it hits the camera. And I'm going to scroll down under the open effects where it says global blend. And I'm going to basically just keyframe the blend. So instead of having it on right now, I want to have it off for the very beginning. And then I'm going to go one frame after and turn it all the way down. So now we have something that looks like this. All right, so that was the first web effect. Now here's the more complicated one. And this is where you actually shoot the web out and you hit an object and you catch it, you sling it towards yourself. And so let me break it down because there's a little bit of a setup that you have to know what to do before you actually even attempt to do this shot. So what you're going to need is an assistant to essentially help you. So for this clip, I pretended that I had a web shooter like Spiderman. I would stop and hold that exact position, then I said, okay, hey, family member, will you come out and help me? Grab that pillow for me. So they would come out, hand me that pillow. I would stay as still as possible and then react like I just pulled it back with a web. One thing that you want to do when you actually pretend to shoot your web out is actually pull your elbow back about halfway, like you've already started to pull the object. In this specific shot, I didn't do that. I kept my arm straight and then I caught it and then I went back with it. I just noticed that with this next clip I'm going to actually do it on, it looked better when I pretended to go halfway through with the movement. So as you can see here, boom, I stopped there and then I would have the bottle because that's what I'm going to grab. And then I followed through with it from there. Okay. All right. So here's the clip of me and I'm going to shoot the web at this water bottle. And so what I'm going to do is find the place where I shoot the web and pull back about halfway, which is right about there. And I stop right about there. I'm going to zoom in on that clip. I'm going to push B for the blade tool, select the blade tool, and then I'm going to scroll to the point where I react to catching it. So right about there, I'm going to blade that, cut that, and then just delete that middle section. Okay, so next what we want to do is bring in the web asset, the web effect. And this one specifically is going to be the web sticky. It looks like that. So after you bring it in, you want to come up to the composite mode and just select add. Next, what we want to do is come to the point where I shoot the web out of my hand, which is right about there. And we're going to time it kind of like what we did with the previous technique. We just want to make the web look like it's coming out of your hand. So I'm going to move the arrow keys to the point of where the web kind of shoots out, which is right about there. So I'm going to trim it to that point. Then I'm going to scroll to the point where I shoot the web out, which is right about there. And I'm going to bring that to the playhead. And then I'm going to adjust the web. So you can see it right here a little bit, but I'm going to click on this icon here and adjust it like so. So I'm going to change it, just basically move it, adjust the size, rotate it. So with that clip selected, since this is kind of faint, I'm actually going to come into the color tab and just adjust the brightness of this specific clip. All right, that way we can see it a little bit better. I also want to make sure I adjust it so it hits the bottle. It doesn't really go past it. And maybe just rotate it a little bit more. So as I go through the frames, I also pull it back. And this video also has like a pull back animation. So I want to zoom in and just basically trim it. Whoop. So it matches up with my movement. So I want it to come out as I shoot it. And then I also want it to pull back at the same time. But as you can see, my hand moves and this thing just is stationary. So what we're going to need to do is keyframe the zoom and the position and maybe even the rotation. And as I go forward in time using the keyboard, I'm going to just move this back and maybe rotate it just a little bit and put it right up to where my palm was. So right now, this is what it looks like. It looks kind of legit. It's just you don't see the water bottle in the midair. So in order to do that, we're going to have to create a fusion clip. So let's go ahead and make this web clip a compound clip. And then let's also select these clips. Now this is where it kind of gets very important. You don't want to get disorganized. So essentially what we want is we need a clean plate. So that means a frame, something underneath the video that will allow us to not see the water bottle. We also need a still frame that's going to have the water bottle. And then we need the original video and the web. So in order to do that, so what we can do is create another layer, hold down Option, drag this up. This will be our water bottle layer, since the water bottle is in this frame. And we're going to have that selected, come up select clip, and select freeze frame. Now I'm going to drag that all the way to the end of this compound clip with the web. I'm going to drag these two up, just one step. And then what we need is a freeze frame, a clean plate that has no water bottle there. So something like over here. So I'm just going to select this clip, select clip up here at the top, select freeze frame. Let's drag it underneath, resize it, and then I'm going to adjust these so they go to the very beginning of this transition clip, because that's the last point that we're going to need to animate the water bottle. So just basically adjust all of the freeze frames, and I guess we can split the compound. That way it just makes it easier for us inside the Fusion clip. Make sure all those are the same length. Split this bottom one. Let's highlight all 4 of these. Right click and create new Fusion clip. Make sure the playhead is over the Fusion clip. Select Fusion. Now let's figure out the layers. So I'm just going to delete all these merge nodes, and let's just go through this a few frames here. So this is our video file. Okay. I'm going to drag the median to. This could be our clean plate, so I'm going to rename this clean. So that'll be the bottom layer. Next, we have the bottle layer. That's another freeze frame. And then the last one we have here is going to be the web. Cool. So we'll just rename that web. All right, so let's take our video file and let's start adding some things to it. So let's first add the clean plate. So I'm going to hold down Shift and drag this down in between like this. That'll automatically create a merge node. And what I want to do with this clean plate is add a polygon node to it. So I'm going to click on that polygon node, and I'm just going to basically select something like that. And if it's kind of hard to understand, I'm basically just layering a frame that we had from before that has no water bottle in it because I was holding it on the original frame. All right, so the next thing we want to do is add the water bottle. So let's just hold down Shift, drag it down on top of this line. That should automatically add the water bottle with a merge node. And what we want to do now is actually cut this bottle out, because right now we're just looking at a freeze frame, and the only thing that we need from this freeze frame is that water bottle. So let's go ahead and select that bottle, then select a polygon node that should automatically attach. And for now, let's just come over here, and I know the water bottle is here, so let's just click a bunch and boom, make our water bottle appear. But what I essentially want to do is kind of just come close to the water bottle. So I'm just going to mask this out real quick. And with this specific example, there's a shadow here, so you have to make sure that you keep that in mind, because if you just mask out the water bottle, it won't show the shadow. So you kind of have to make sure you include that. So now we have our clean plate, we have our water bottle, we have our video file. Next, we want to put our web in. So let's just hold down Shift, drag web over here, connect that in between these two. And now we should have our web shooting out like that. And I'll pull it back. But what we need to do just for these last 2 frames is pull the water bottle through the air. So in order to do that, let's just click on the bottle, hold down Shift and press spacebar, type in transform. After you've added that transform, we want to keyframe the water bottle getting pulled through the air. So let's go ahead and just select the center, and let's go 1 frame over. Let's go 2 frame over. All right, let's go to this next frame. This is the frame right before, so I'm actually going to keyframe that right before as well. As it gets pulled through the air, I'm going to move this center over like so. But as you can see, the polygon line is still masking out the couch. So let's just go ahead and move that polygon up to the water ball. That way. Oh, okay. So you just have to make sure you move it back when you go back and forth. So All right, next, we just want to go again with another keyframe, and let's just keep this water bottle along with the spider web. So I guess we could just move it pretty far at this point. So make sure you have transform selected. Let's pull it even further. And then another thing that we want to do now that we've pulled that through the air like that, I'm actually going to move it a little bit further. Let's move it like right there. Let's go ahead and click on merge, that merge node that we have the bottle attached to. And let's come over here to the inspector. Let's click on that third icon that we have with that little cog and select motion blur and crank it up. So now when we pull that up, it creates a good amount of motion blur. So if you don't want that much, we can turn it down. You can crank down the shutter angle so it's a little bit more apparent that it's getting pulled through the air. So now this is what we have when you have the edited Fusion clip. Then all you have to do is add the sound effects that came in the downloads and you're done. If you like videos like this, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you later.